I am going to talk about your menstrual cycle and how it affects performance. But before I get into the hormones and how it can affect your performance, I just want to talk a little bit about how important it is to get to your period when you're a female athlete. It is extremely important for healthy bones. So if you want to have a long career in sport, you need to make sure that you're having your period every month. It's something where if you're not getting your period, I would suggest you talk to your coach, your doctors. I'm a firm believer in not having birth control that is hormonal, because that can, in a way, fake you getting your period. So you won't actually know if your body is producing enough energy to get your period. And when you stop menstruating, that's your body's first sign that your body is shutting down and it's not getting the nutrients it needs, which means it's pulling from your bones, which will ultimately lead to really weak bones, stress fractures. It will lead to low energy levels. And so getting your period is really important. It's something that I'm very passionate about in sharing with a lot of young women, just knowing that I think that's the number one. It can be a misconception in that, I think when I was growing up, people thought, oh, if you don't get your period, it's just because you're an athlete, and that's completely wrong. You should always be menstruating, even if you're working out at a very high elite level. So to get into how your menstrual cycle affects your training and racing, I'm just gonna kind of explain the different hormone levels and how they react throughout your cycle. Oh boy, how can I do this? Okay, one. So if this is 28 days, that's a typical female cycle. In the middle at like day 14 is when you would be ovulating. And your first day of your cycle, how you count your cycle, is you start from the first day you get your period. And women get their period 3 to 7 days. I actually have my period for 8 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And to count your cycle, you count from the first day you get your period to the next time you get your period. A typical woman cycle is 28 days long, and you ovulate on day 14. Now, when I actually, this is just a side note, but I switched over to using menstrual cups instead of tampons and pads, and it has been a game changer for me. I've not only been able to track how much blood I'm losing on a daily basis and throughout my cycle, which then helps inform me, of maybe I need to get a little extra iron in, or it can also sometimes affect my mood a little bit. So I've been able to track exactly how much blood I lose on a daily basis. And it also just saves the environment. I used to fill like 2 bathroom garbage bags full every month, and now I fill none. So if you haven't made the switch, I would highly recommend using a menstrual cup. It takes a few cycles to get used to it, so just know that it may take time to get used to it, but once you get the hang of it, it's amazing. Back to your cycle. So this is our cycle, and there are kind of 4 main hormones that play a factor, and so I'm gonna draw those in with different colors. The first one I'm gonna draw in is LH, which is, I'm probably gonna pronounce this wrong, the luteinizing hormone. And so that one peaks like right before ovulation. So it kind of just comes in, and then right before ovulation it peaks, and then it comes back down. So that one is LH. Then we're going to do FSH, which is the follicle stimulating hormone. And that one is kind of I'd say a little bit all over the place. It goes up a little bit, and then it kind of comes down, and then it comes up again right before you ovulate, and then kind of gradually goes down. So that's the FSH. We'll do estrogen, which I think a lot of people We talk about estrogen. This one actually has a big effect on our mood and sorts of things, all of their sorts of things I'll get into in a little bit. So this one, again, peaks before ovulation. So it kind of goes up. It comes down, and then it actually goes up a little bit, and then down again. So that one, we'll go this line equals estrogen. Now the last one is proestrogen. And that one peaks in after ovulation. So it's kind of easiest way to kind of break down the cycle is to break it down into two separate phases. The first phase being the follicular stage. And that one's from when you get your period until ovulation. And then the second phase is the luteal phase. And so these are two different phases that you have throughout your cycle. And normally in your follicular phase, you feel good, you feel happy. You can a lot of times withstand higher training, and you can be a little bit more mentally sharp. Your pain tolerance, a lot of times you have a higher pain tolerance. This, though, is taken with a grain of salt, because a lot of women, when they're on their period and when you're actually menstruating, you can actually feel a little mentally drained. You maybe are, still having some PMS stuff from premenstrual hormones. So theoretically, in the follicular stage, you could say that you'd maybe be able to perform better. That's what I guess some research that I read had kind of alluded to, but I guess I don't really think that's the case. I've actually had, I know some people talk about maybe trying to alter their cycle so that they can race on a better day. I've never done that. I don't ever want to do that. I really believe that you can perform excellent on any day, and I can tell you that I've raced my best, I've trained my best on every single day of my cycle. So in the second phase, after you've ovulated, a lot of times your body temp will increase and your breathing rate. And because of this, you're burning more calories. So in this phase, it's really important if you're training to make sure that you're fueling yourself with, you need extra carbs, you need extra protein. So sometimes I think athletes practice training fasted. And that, I think for a woman is, if you're gonna do that, I don't ever practice fasted training, but the research that I kind of found was that during this phase is the best time to do that. And when you get over here after ovulation, because your body is using so much more energy, it's really hard for you to perform fasted because your body is just burning so many calories and it's working harder with the increased breathing rate and the higher body temperature. A lot of times in this phase, things feel worse. So it's going to feel really hard, but that doesn't mean that you can't perform at the same level. I think in this stage, a really good thing to remember is feelings don't dictate outcomes. So I think it's just really important that, in this stage, things may feel worse, but you should remember that your VO2 max, all these things nothing has changed. It's just maybe your perception has changed. And I think as a professional athlete, we know how to push beyond. We know that we can't let our feelings dictate what's going to happen in the outcome. So I think that's really important to remember. So another thing to remember is the estrogen. So that's the blue. I'm going to go back to the blue. this line. When your estrogen is high, so like in this phase, you need a lot more carbs usually, and it also has a higher risk of injury because you need more carbs. If you're not getting in the proper nutrition and the fuel that you need, then it's going to be easier for you to get injured because you don't have enough fuel to fuel your body. So I think it's just really important. I think a big thing, men don't have to worry about being fasted or your body temperature increasing or your breathing rate increasing, going up and down and having all these changes. And I think it is a very real thing, your menstrual cycle, and how it affects your training. I know for me personally, my worst days are these two, the two before I get my period. Mentally, I'm exhausted. I am crabby. I'm really on edge. And so for me, these are normally my worst 2 days, but I know other women who have their worst days during their period. And so I think it's really good. I think the most important thing is to track your menstrual cycle and to just kind of see how you feel. I'm not a doctor by any means, and this is just some of the things I've learned throughout my career, through working with my pelvic floor specialist, just through wanting to learn more about my body and the effects that these hormones play a part. But also know, like, if you see these huge fluctuations in these graphs, like, your hormones are actually changing. And so if you do feel different, there's a very valid reason for that, and it's because all your hormones in your body are changing. So give yourself a break. My biggest suggestion is to track how you feel. I wish that I would have tracked my feelings and my menstruation and all that a lot earlier in my career, because I've been able to have confidence on those days when maybe things feel tougher, knowing that it could just be my hormones, and that, in a few days I will feel much better and it will go back to feeling how I was. So I hope you guys learned something from this. Again, I'm not a doctor, and so hopefully everything I said, I just wanted to kind of give like a brief overview of my personal knowledge and how menstruation affects me. The number one thing is to make sure that you continue to get your period. If you're not getting it, talk to somebody about getting it and get it naturally. I really believe that hormonal birth control pills is not a good thing. So talk to somebody about things you can do to get your period. It will help with a really long career, athletic career, and also it will allow for you to just have a really long, happy, healthy life.